Welcome to TaskHuman Talks. I'm your host and fellow wellness provider, Jamie Carroll. And today, all the way from Malaysia, we have Angeline. And Angeline is a wellness coach and yoga instructor. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Nighttime, your time.
Yes, my time, 9 p.m.
It's nighttime
and
where you
8
are and morning
p.m.
where I am.
Yes.
We've got both extremes here. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
welcome. Let us know how you're helping people on the Task Human app. How are you working with people?
So right now, via the app, I'm actually connecting with people on different levels. So I meet all kinds of people. Sometimes we go for yoga classes. So there are this group of people who goes for more to the physical health, and they want to do yoga and just sometimes just very simple stretching in the middle of the workday. So I help them with that. And then some people want a little bit of assistance on the mental level. So that's where we have a little bit of mindfulness. We have callers calling in to ask how do we meditate and how can meditation help them. And also we have consumers talking about how do we manage stress, what's the best way to manage stress at work, especially actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially right now with everything going on.
Mhm. Yeah. So this is what I do on a daily basis, basically.
Yeah. And you really use these tools yourself in your own health journey. So the tool of yoga, meditation, managing stress, because you have quite an interesting health journey that I kind of want to dive into. You said to me the question that you get a lot is about your heart journey. So sort of
I
take us
do.
through what you mean by that. What is your heart journey?
So the heart journey is really about me finding out 9 years ago that I had an aneurysm in my aorta. So an aneurysm is basically a bulging of the valve. So mine happens to be at the aorta, right? So in the aortic aneurysm, and when we first found out, it was very much of a wait and see situation. So it's like let's wait and see, and if it continues to grow, we need to arrest it and get the surgery. So I waited for 2 years. So throughout the 2 years, there was a lot of going to the hospitals, a lot of scans and things like that. And eventually, 2 years later, I had to go for a surgery because the size has grown to a size where it's kind of dangerous, where it might, burst at any point in time. So we decided and we agreed to do the surgery. So it was an open heart surgery.
Okay.
Yep, 7 hours. So yeah, and I am now left with a scar.
Yeah, so you have a big scar on your
Yes, I do.
but otherwise, like were you already practicing yoga and mindfulness before this heart surgery happened?
Um, yes, I have been practicing yoga for a long time, but I was never like really into it. It's like I go whenever I feel like it, and mindfulness meditation has always been part of yoga as well. So I do it on and off. I am not, I'm not very consistent at
Yeah.
that time. Yeah.
Okay. So what I know that you mentioned that you turned to yoga like as a healing modality. What made you, after going through that heart journey, so to speak, what made you turn to yoga and like really develop your practice even more, whether it's mindfulness yoga?
Mhm. Well, to be honest, at that time, yoga was pretty much the only thing I could do.
Ah,
So it was like the most logic thing because the doctors were like, you can't do this, you can't do that. So, but then I started to explore if I could do yoga. And when I really look, there is a lot of types of yoga out there which anyone could do. So even for someone who is recovering from a major surgery, who is unwell, they might not be able to lift heavy stuff, they might not be able to run, but there's always a place on the mat where I could uh, practice yoga, like just going for options, going for different types of yoga, going slow and things like that. So, so in a sense, that actually helps me in my healing because it allows me to move. And along the way, as I was practicing, there's learnings that arises in you or that arises in me, and there's a lot of sense of self acceptance. Like you start to realize that, oh, um, my body is not what it is used to be, but it's still my body. And what can I do to accept it? So there's a lot of work done internally, a lot of self compassion, I would say, and really about once you really tune in and realize that the body is really such an intelligent machine, because despite of what I have, um, I could see that the body is working for me and working with me towards healing. And that gives me a lot of hope in my journey to recover.
That's actually one of the questions I had for you is, about your journey to understanding your body. So how do you help people with this as well? Because it seems, like I feel like a lot of people feel like they can't, like as we get older, things may pop up, an injury, an illness, something where we can't move like we used to when we were in our 20s, right, or teens. And that we can feel sort of debilitated by that, like we just can't do anything. So do you use yoga and like any other techniques to help people move through that journey?
Yeah, mostly yoga. I mean, because I have experienced firsthand what is it like to know like what it feels like to not be able to move, for example,
Right.
or not be able to get into a certain pose, for example. And there are certain poses right now, for example, I will never get into because of my certain limitation that I have. And what I share with my students or the consumers is that there is really nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's like that's the way it is. And while there are things that we can't do, there are still so many things that we can do. And it's really about being open to all the possibilities and trusting that the body can find something that works for it. And along the way, not giving up, just letting go of expectations, letting go of the ego, not giving up, and letting go in the process.
That's beautiful. So yoga is so much more than just moving your body, although that is a benefit that you get as well. But you're also through yoga experiencing and learning more about your body and your life journey basically along the way. Like,
That's what happened. Yes.
yeah. So let's
Yeah.
dive into mindfulness.
Mhm.
There's so much, that term is used so much right now, like especially in the States, everyone's talking about mindfulness and being mindful. What does that word mean to you?
Mindfulness is really very simple. It basically just means being present, being present at the present moment. And while it is simple, I would say that it is not easy to practice, or at least it is not easy in the beginning. Um, Mindfulness is something that everyone uses, like you mentioned. And I think they are not wrong in the sense because you can be mindful in anything that you do, anytime, anywhere. So um, it's really mindfulness is really one of my passion. I would really, really love to, anytime I can, even in a yoga class, I would slip in a little bit of mindfulness, philosophy, or say something about mindfulness, talk something about mindfulness. And because I've seen how mindfulness has worked on some of my students. For example, I also work with kids and kids with special needs. And who would know that kids with special needs, sometimes they are in the world of their own. But when we are able to practice mindfulness, they are able to, to be present in the moment, even though it's from moment to moment, but that's what that counts anyway. So after I've seen this happens to the students that I have, I am even more determined, and I even believe even more that anyone can practice,
How do we
including
practice mindfulness?
it's just about coming back to the present moment, right? So if you just follow the definition, it's really about coming back, coming back, coming back. So it's about really about knowing the intention that you have at the present moment. Like, what's my intention right now? So my intention right now is to have a conversation with you, Jamie. So, and along the way, maybe my mind may wander, but I know that my intention that serves as my anchor is to have a conversation. So all I have to do is just come back to my intention. And of course, that takes practice. Um, each time when the mind wanders, we come back. And each time the mind wanders, we come back. We find that we are able to come back easier and faster, and we can come back more often. And when that happens, you are actually on the way to being more present.
I love that you said it, come back to your intention. So it sounds like in order to practice mindfulness, we need to first start maybe with having an intention. Because I feel like that suddenly I'm just getting this intuitive hit that maybe that could be a missing piece for a lot of people, is they don't have an intention. And so um there's just a lot going on in the mind. They're not mindful of what they're doing because maybe they don't know. Do you find that that happens with clients that you work with? Like, do you help them with intention setting?
I find I don't know what's happening in the mind of other people, but I do know that setting an intention would actually help you to be more grounded, and it does give you something to come back to. And because, like I said, it serves as like as an anchor point, so it really grounds you. And then every time when you are wondering or you are getting a little bit scattered headed and things like that, you just come back to the intention, and that always works.
I love that. I feel like we just figured out mindfulness now. Come back to the intention.
So, yoga practice with an intention as well. So I love to encourage the consumers. We start a class with just a quiet sit, and I usually like to invite them to just set an intention. It can be anything, it can be something really simple like I just want some calm and peace, for example, or I just want to be a little bit more flexible on this or today. So it can be anything as long as you have something to hold on to come back.
I love it. And is an intention like a goal? Or it can just be something that you're wanting to cultivate, something that you're wanting to feel?
I'm gonna say it's like a goal, because to me a goal would be something that you would really hard pressed to chase after it.
Mhm.
But an intention is more like it's something just to, it's like a stone or like an anchor to really pull you down, and then where you could really feel the body and the breath. And when you can feel something, it actually helps for you to come back, because most of the time we don't feel the body, we feel like like half the body. And then I talk to a lot of people and I say, do you feel your feet? And most of them say no, they don't feel their feet.
Yeah,
And it's so important to feel both feet grounded, because if not, you will be like a balloon, like flying away.
right. So
Yeah,
going back, that intention can help ground us when we start to get into our head too much and
yeah,
thoughts we're like
yes,
feeling crazy. Coming back to that intention to ground, to anchor,
yeah.
bring us back down. I love it. That's great. Awesome. Do you have any mindfulness techniques that you can share with us or lead us through?
Uh, well, usually there's a lot of things that you could do with mindfulness, right? There's mindful eating, mindful walking, mindful movement, mindful parenting. So anytime or anything is always a good chance to practice mindfulness. But I would think that the easiest way to practice would be mindful breathing, because you always have the breath with you. And it's really about just coming back to the breath. And I do love the definition by John Kabat-Zinn. He says that he defines mindfulness as paying attention to the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. So I feel that that very short sentence really says it all about really wanting to pay attention, and on purpose would be, for me, would be my intention,
Right.
and non-judgmentally.
Wonderful. So wait, say that again. It's paying attention on purpose without judgment.
Paying attention on the on the present moment without judgment.
I love it. Great. Wonderful. So one of the things you also said to me was, so I have a lot in here about fear, and I'm sure that you've overcome a lot of fear, just like kind of taking it back to your heart journey with sort of the unknown. And, like you kind of talked about how you're using mindfulness and yoga on your journey. Where are you on your journey with all of your health now?
Right. So
Fear around there that you still experience?
yeah, so yeah, as you mentioned, it's a journey. So it turns out that my health journey is not quite over, because 6 months after I had my first surgery, I was diagnosed with a second heart condition at the same area, basically. So I have what they call a leaky valve. So, or it's also known as a regurgitation.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of a blow for me, because I thought everything is taken care of and I can live normally, but no. So I now live with another condition in my heart. So therefore, for me, the journey still continues. But it's a little bit different this time, because I am a bit more aware of what's happening. I'm able to recognize when there is fear arising, and I'm also able to accept things as they are and not what I think it should be. So that actually helps me in managing and living life to the fullest.
So what do you do when that fear shows up?
Um, well, when fear shows up, I think I have already made friends with my fear at this point in time, but I do remember that the first few times when fear showed up, I actually had a physical response to it. So, because fear is just another emotion that is a physiological sensation in the body. So, for me, fear manifests as numbness in my face, and especially on my left hand side, and fear also manifests as what do you call it, low blood pressure. So my pressure would just go right down, and then I basically cannot function for like the whole day or the whole week if I know that I'm in fear. So I learned to recognize that after a while. Then I know that I'm actually in fear. And by recognizing that actually changes everything, because by just recognizing fear and just seeing fear for what it is, it disappears after that, which is quite strange. It's
Wow.
no, yeah, it's funny, but I do not know how to explain it, but it's like the body's reacting to the fear that you have. And in my mind, I'm just telling myself, no, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid. But the truth is, I am. So the moment I recognize that I am, it goes away. So it's really like, any emotions, it comes and it goes. It doesn't stay forever.
So we
You are
have to
able,
be friends with our fear. We have to get to know our fear and become friends with it
yes, yep.
by being present, probably, and you being mindful.
Yeah, you have to be mindful to be able to be friends with it, because you have to be mindful first in order for you to recognize that it's fear,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So once you recognize it, then you decide what do you want to do with it.
I love it. Yeah. I'm just letting that all soak in, being mindful of the emotion to really overcome it or accept it or then know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really need to do anything. You just have to, well, for me, I just have to really recognize it. And because you really can't do anything about it. I think it's just that it will on its own
Yeah.
disappear, or it changes, and things like that. But you don't have to do anything about it. You just have to recognize it, and it changes.
Wow. That's great. One of the things you just said that I wrote down was live normally. Like right now, I think you were talking about you realize like you weren't going to be able to live normally or something like that. But with your heart journey and everything. Right now with COVID going on, there's a lot of things happening in the world. There's a lot of talk of what our new normal is going to be, or and I'm sure there's lots of people experiencing this, right? Maybe they're not able to see family, they're getting sick, they've been diagnosed with something. They,
Mm.
what does it mean to live normally? Like, what does that mean to you? What is, like, how can we shift our perspective of what that means to live a normal, quote unquote, life? Like, is there such a thing as a normal life?
Well, I guess my normal and your normal would not be the same.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really about perspective. But for me, being able to live normally would be living, coming from the heart, and doing things from the heart, showing up as authentically as I can, as a teacher, as a mom, as a friend, as a wife. So that would actually, for me, that would be living normally, just giving the best that I can on a daily basis, and knowing that I've done my best. I mean, we all know that we live in difficult times right now, and I guess the more is again, it's back to like when you are looking at fear, the more you try to reject it, the more it's not going to work. And the more you allow it to come, then you realize it's not really as bad as you think it is. Because
Right.
there's always hope. There is always hope that,
Yeah, there is always hope. And that's one thing you said, that there is no fear when you have faith, hope, and love.
yeah, that's my favorite to go phrase.
Yeah.
Faith, hope. Yeah.
So we need to cultivate a faith, hope, and love, and how can we tune into that more? How can we get into the faith, hope, and love a little bit more?
Well, I think for me, faith is really about, is basically, it means trust. And to have trust, we have to be aware of what's really happening in order for us to trust that things are going to be okay, right? So once, if you really look around, I mean, around you, and we see that, okay, my family is fine, I'm fine, I have the things that I need. So to me, it's that we are in a fairly safe place, and therefore I could trust that I am okay for now.
Yeah.
And with that's where the faith comes in. And hope for me is something that I get from the inner wisdom that we have.
Mm,
So I believe that we all have inner wisdom, or some people like to call it inner voice or intuition or whatever. But there is this wisdom that we have, a sense of knowing. So once again, it's really about uh, being maybe like quiet enough, so that you're able to see the wisdom in you. And when you're able to see there is wisdom, and then that's where hope comes in.
mm,
And lastly would be love. And love, very similar, is very similar to wisdom. We all have love in us. Is some people call it natural goodness, some people call it love, some people call, I don't know, there's different names, but it's all the same thing. It's all about a sense of goodness. There's goodness in us, and that goodness itself, once you are able to recognize it as well, that we all have it, then it gives you a sense of like, a sense of comfort, that no matter what happens, you have that. You, if the world around you collapse and no one is there to give you love, but you still have that in you. You
mm.
could call it self-love, I'm not sure, but I
Yeah.
just know is there is something that you have, and no one can take it away. So very often we search outside for love, for pleasure, for happiness. But when people tell me that happiness is within, I didn't quite believe it in the beginning
Mm.
until I realize and I'm able to feel it on my own. Then I do know that, oh, they are right. It's actually in us. All we have to do is to recognize it.
Right.
And we can recognize it if we are able to be really quiet enough to able to go within and to be really be mindful of all these things that the body is actually telling you, or your soul is telling you that you have love, you are wise, and you are good enough. So if we are mindful enough, we can hear all this and we can feel. And once you feel there's and it just sets in you and there's no going back, because then there's who you are and you know who you are.
Oh, I love it. So it's really all ties in together, from creating that intention to be mindful and always going back to that intention, that grounding, that anchoring point, to
Mhm.
really be able to sit with emotions like fear, and then
Yeah,
discover within you the trust, the faith, the hope,
yeah,
the love, all of those things that are within you that you always have.
yeah.
And that's going to
It
be
took a
normal. Like you're to live normally is really your own definition.
yes. I would
Yeah.
say, because some people don't. I think I know some people who don't really agree with the way I live, but that's my life, so I'm happy. So that's gonna be my normal, my life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you get to define what your new normal, quote unquote, whatever you want that to be, or your
Mm-hmm.
old normal, or you're just normal. It's all
Exactly.
that you can create yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Great. And Angeline, what is your self-care routine? I love asking coaches this. What do you do
Self-care
for
routine.
self-care on a daily basis?
Well, it's the usual, I guess, with everyone. Well, I try to eat healthy, balanced meal, but I seem to have challenges with meals because I love to eat and I eat a lot. So that is somewhat of a challenge for me. Um, I always try to go to bed on time and wake up on time, whether it's a holiday, whether it's a working day, whether it's a weekend. I try to go to bed on time and then wake up on time the next day, always the same time, because I think my body thrives on that. Um, I always make sure that I have time alone for self care. Yeah, so time alone for me is really to quiet down from, because already our mind is so noisy, right? And with the noise that we have from outside, from social media, is it's not going to make things better.
Yeah.
So quiet time is really important for me to once again really come back to my intention.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back, I mean, I come back to my intention, coming back to the same intention, like to show up as who I am, to show up the best as I can,
Right.
and that is the same intention. So it's a continuous practice. So it's just about sitting down and really reflecting on what have I done today and how do I want to show up tomorrow. Um, whether is there anything else I could do better? Is there anything else that I could do for this person, that person, or even for myself, and things like that. So it's really about just sitting down or lying in bed and doing nothing, but really reflecting and just taking it all in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And so when doing nothing, and in fact is doing something,
Yeah.
because you're reflecting and
What?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, because people will always be like, "Oh, I can't just do nothing." And it's like, well, if you're intentionally doing nothing, then you're doing something. Is what
Yeah.
I like to
Really.
reflect it to people, because in this world, like, we always want to be doing and going and not sitting in that space of mindfulness or being with our those emotions like fear. We try to run
Yeah.
away from them. So yeah, doing something by doing nothing.
So it's just more like being versus doing, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Being versus doing.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things to say is be more, do less.
Yeah, that's beautiful, right? Yeah, but that's the thing is, I think a lot of people find it really challenging to just slow down and do less.
Hmm.
I'm not sure why. I like doing less. I mean, I think by doing less, you actually achieve more.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's just not a practice that people are used to, which is why it's so great that we have you on the TaskHuman app to really help people with this presence and mindfulness, and even taking that to their body to move a little bit more, all with intention and all with a
Mm.
purpose of,
Yeah.
slowing down a
Yeah.
little bit and understanding themselves more through wellness, health, and movement.
Yeah. So that's really interesting that you mentioned it because I did meet a lot of consumers who are like, you could tell that they are like really fast, and I'm like really slow in class. So so in the beginning, I could like kind of feel like they are a little bit frustrated, but I still go slow, and I say, have patience, and just I just was trying to explain to them like why we do things the way we do and things like that. And after a while, well, it's not really after a while, it's like very fast and very quickly they actually get it. And once they get it, you want to stay there.
Right.
And yeah, they want to stay there and they come back for the next class and the next class. So it's quite amazing.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
coming back for more because they know that you can help them get to that place of like an inner stillness almost.
yeah. And I'm really trying to encourage them to, even when you're off the mat, you could, still practice whatever you practice on the mat, like really going slow, not really slowing down, but bringing awareness to your breath, noticing your body, noticing how you're feeling, where you're feeling it, and why you're feeling it, things like that.
Yeah.
So, what I hope that they will continue to do on a continuous basis.
Yeah, being in that present moment,
Mhm.
off the mat as well as on the mat. Like they can take that with them.
Yes,
And
exactly.
yeah, we're always trying to do 50 things at once. And then really just focusing and being present and just doing the one thing that you have to do in that moment. That can be really powerful as well.
It is.
Well, thank you, Angeline. This has been so great to chat with you today. Is there anything else that you want to share with anyone before we close out?
No, I don't think so. I think we pretty much talk about a lot of stuff today. We covered a lot of stuff, and I'm really happy to be able to share my experience with you, Jamie, and also with TaskHuman. So it's been an honor.
Yes, absolutely. So if you guys are looking for yoga practice to cultivate mindfulness or even do some meditations and really practice that inner stillness, because it takes practice, it
Yes.
takes repetition, just like when you start, a running program, for example, you got to get
Yeah,
out there and run, it's a practice. So if
it is.
you're looking for someone, make sure you reach out to Angeline on our Task Human app. Thank you once again, Angeline. It was so great to chat with you. And thank you to all of you out there listening. And we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.